The subway was chaos, doors squealing open, people jostling for space, the air thick with impatience. Keanu Reeves, wearing a faded baseball cap and simple jacket, slipped unnoticed into the packed car. He leaned against a pole, his face obscured by sunglasses, trying to blend in. Despite his best efforts, the universe had other plans for him that day. The train screeched to a stop, and in shuffled an elderly man with trembling hands clutching a cane. His frailty was apparent in the way he wobbled with every step, eyes darting nervously for a seat. He muttered softly to himself, "Oh, these trains always so full. I should have waited." Keanu immediately scanned the car, his keen eyes landing on a woman seated in the priority section. She looked sharp in her designer blazer and meticulously styled hair, scrolling mindlessly through her phone. Everyone else in the car either avoided eye contact or was too immersed in their own world. Keanu hesitated. It was an awkward situation, and he hated making anyone uncomfortable. Still, he stepped forward. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said politely, his voice calm yet carrying a quiet authority. "Would you mind letting him have your seat? He looks like he could use it." The woman didn't even glance up. "I'm sure he'll manage," she said flatly, dismissing him with a wave of her manicured hand. Keanu tried again, leaning slightly closer, but still maintaining his unassuming posture. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I think it's the right thing to do. He seems a little unsteady." This time, she looked up, her eyes scanning Keanu with disdain. "The right thing to do?" she sneered. "And who exactly are you to tell me that? Just because you've got that scruffy, holier-than-thou look doesn't mean I have to listen to you." A ripple of discomfort spread through the car. People exchanged uneasy glances but stayed silent. Keanu's calm demeanor never wavered. "I'm nobody," he said quietly. "Just someone who believes in helping when we can." The woman scoffed, her voice growing louder. "Well, maybe you should stop pretending to be some kind of saint and focus on yourself. People like you always think you know better. Newsflash, you don't." Keanu didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to the elderly man. "Sir, would you like to take my spot by the door? It's not a seat, but it's stable." The old man smiled weakly, clearly embarrassed by the commotion. "Oh, thank you, son, but I'll be all right. Just a few stops to go." The woman rolled her eyes. "See, he doesn't even need it. Stop making a scene." Keanu looked back at her, his tone soft but firm. "It's not about making a scene. It's about doing the right thing." The tension in the car was unbearable. A young man sitting nearby whispered to his friend, "Does she really not recognize him? That's Keanu Reeves." The friend snickered. "Does it matter? She's being awful either way." Then, at the next stop, the subway doors opened, and a man in a neatly pressed uniform stepped onto the train. His presence instantly drew attention, his posture crisp, his hands clutching a bouquet of flowers. His eyes darted through the car, landing on Keanu. "Mr. Reeves?" the man said, his voice filled with reverence. The woman froze, her head snapping toward Keanu. The rest of the car went eerily silent. "Yes," Keanu responded, his voice humble, almost hesitant. The man stepped forward, his voice now trembling. "I just wanted to thank you again for what you did for my daughter. The hospital ward you funded. Without it, she wouldn't have survived." His eyes glistened as he extended the bouquet. "These are for you. It's not much, but it's from our family's heart." A collective gasp rippled through the car. Keanu gently accepted the flowers, his expression one of genuine warmth. "Thank you," he said, placing a hand on the man's shoulder. "I'm so glad she's doing better. That's all that matters." The woman's face turned beet red. She stammered, "Oh my God, I didn't know." Keanu turned to her, his calm gaze piercing. "It's okay," he said, his voice as steady as ever. "But kindness shouldn't depend on who someone is. It should be for everyone, every time." Her eyes welled up with tears, her bravado crumbling. "You're right," she whispered. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have acted like that." The elderly man, now seated thanks to another passenger who had quietly given up their spot, spoke up. "Young man," he said, addressing Keanu, "you've done more in these few moments than most people do in a lifetime. Thank you for reminding us." Keanu smiled gently, nodded to the man, and returned to his spot by the door, cradling the flowers as though they were the most valuable gift he'd ever received. As the train neared his stop, The woman reached out hesitantly. "Mr. Reeves, I thank you for your kindness." "You didn't have to." He turned to her, his expression kind but firm. "Kindness isn't about recognition. It's about what you do when no one's watching." The train stopped, and Keanu stepped off, blending back into the busy city as if nothing had happened. The woman sat silently, tears streaming down her face, while the rest of the passengers buzzed with admiration and reflection. That day, everyone in that subway car learned a profound lesson. True greatness lies not in fame, but in humility and the quiet power of doing what's right. Even the smallest act of kindness can ripple into something far greater. And sometimes karma doesn't wait, it comes riding the subway, wearing a baseball cap, holding a bouquet of gratitude.